In this special episode of the Simple Life Chat, we're exploring families coping with change. I'm Russ Morris, and today we're joined by two guests with separate experience of parenting during periods of transition. Riding the waves of uncertainty is a challenge, especially with young children who thrive on routine and familiarity. Disruption can cause distress on all sides. So today I'm sitting down with Joanne and Rory, who are sharing their own parenting journeys and the lessons they've learnt along the way. So welcome, Rory and Joanne. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Joanne, let's start with you. You're a mum of two and you're an ex-Simple Life resident as well, who in your time of life, you needed temporary rental solution whilst you were waiting for your new build to be ready. So tell us about that. Tell us your story.
Yeah, so we had to sell our house to move into a new build that wasn't yet built. So needed something that could be quite simple because we were going to be doing two moves like quite close together. So we looked at Simple Life as that solution that would make everything smoother for us. And it was the communication at every stage of the way did mean that it just happened because I'd been back at work not a few months from maternity leave with my second child. So I was still in that phase of learning to juggle life and work, and there just wasn't enough hours in the day. So the help and support along the way did make it a lot easier.
And that's the thing. You're back to work. How old were your children at this point?
1 and 3.
Brilliant. So there you go. You're moving house. You're going back to work. You've got a 1 and a 3-year-old. That must have been tough.
Yeah, it was a lot. And at that time, we were spending quite a lot of time, as you can imagine, clearing out the house and getting everything sorted for the move. So with the girls, it was just keeping them entertained, doing things where they were with us and felt part of it without kind of making them feel bored as well.
And what was it like living in the Simple Life home with the people around you in the community? Did that help?
So we moved into an area that we didn't know of. So once we'd looked where it was, we were like, actually, that's a great location for work and seeing our friends, but it's not somewhere that we'd looked at all. And it was really refreshing to kind of spend somewhere new. There was free soft play, as you can imagine, at that stage of life. That was a godsend. And the community was great. There was people moving. So it was a mix of people renting and buying homes where we were. And everyone was just so friendly. People wanted that sense of community. A lot of people had lived in the village their whole lives. So a lot of people knew each other, like you'd be stood in the queue at Tesco and people would just introduce themselves. Oh, not seen you around, that kind of thing. And that was a big change because we were only 6 miles out of Manchester. So, people weren't really like that where we were before. So that was a really pleasant change.
And free soft play. That's a genius.
Game changer.
Yeah, exactly. So Rory, we'll come on to you. You're a father of one and you actually work for Simple Life. What's your job title?
So I'm an investment and acquisitions director based out of the Northwest office. And it is my job to find the homes that we build for our rental communities.
Okay, that'll be interesting seeing it from your side. But you're a father of one. Tell us your story.
So I've got a little boy who is now 2.5. My wife and I had a slightly different journey. We adopted our little boy. So he came to us early last year. So big change in our lives over the last sort of 18 months.
How's it going?
I think what we say to people is he's exceeded every expectation we've ever had in terms of what parenthood would be like, what having a family would be like. It's just been a really, really positive change in our lives that we were ready for.
You were ready for it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't think you're ever ready.
You're not ready, no.
But as ready as we could be.
And having him from one, how was that? I suppose you don't know any different though, do you, I guess?
Don't know any different. I mean, there were lots of plus sides in terms of he was sleeping throughout the night already by the time we got him. So fortunately, we didn't have to go through the sleepless nights as much. Of course, it came with a whole raft of different challenges and continues to be challenging. But it's been absolutely the joy of our lives getting to know this little boy.
It's like, I'm a father of two, and the way I describe it, it's like opening part of your brain you never knew existed. Is that the same for you guys? Like when you become a parent?
Do
you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I think to me, it's that thing. it's that saying, you don't know till you know, and everyone always says it'll be different when you've got your own, and those kind of things, and it's 100% true. For me, you just sort of feel immediately sort of unimportant because they become the most important thing, and I know that switch isn't easy for everyone, but for us it was just it was instant that we were.
It's obviously the right time and the right thing. Yeah.
On the flip side, you're so important as well, though, to these people. Like that is astounding. Like sometimes that takes me back at the end of the day, and I think how I behave and everything that I do, they hold on to it.
Oh, they don't forget anything.
No, that surprises me. Like how good their memories are.
Oh, they remember all sorts.
Yeah.
And as they get older, like our kids now, my kids are nearly 8 and 5, and they remember stuff like silly things, TV programs from like 3 years ago. It's like, how do you remember that?
Yes.
Promises you make.
Yeah. I use the easy one of TV programs, but don't make promises to your kids because they will remember them.
That is something I think is really important. That's something I hammer home to my husband that we're quite different with to start with, that making like promises on the fly that he's not going to stick to. I'm really against it. We've had a few Barneys on that one.
I can see that, yeah. My little boy's just started talking, and I can see that coming down he's not obviously consciously aware of what a promise is yet, but if we mention that we're going swimming, we better be going swimming. He'll go nuts if we're not.
And when plans get changed, nobody copes well with, I mentioned in the intro, nobody copes well with plans changing, but even silly things like the soft play's closed, we can't go to soft play. It's the end of the world, isn't it? It's,
We've experienced that in school holidays. We have turned up places like gymnastics and it's not on. We didn't realise it wasn't on.
And talking about that, for you, Joanne, in your time of flux when you were waiting for the house, how tricky was that to try and keep that, that routine and that stability? How easy was it?
I found it quite easy, actually. I think it was just taking things that to us are just everyday things that needed sorting and making them fun. And I quite enjoyed that. In some ways it made us slow down because I didn't make as many plans, because we do fall into that family of we're going here this weekend and then we're visiting family this weekend. And we kind of said to people, we need some space. We've got lots to do. But actually we did slow down more than we had in a long time.
Have you thought about your parenting styles? Did you talk about before becoming parents? Did you talk about parenting styles and what you were going to be like, or kind of you made it up as you go along?
I think going through the adoption process, you are part of the process is they confront you with your own childhood effectively, so you have to reflect on how you were parented, which is something I'd never done as an adult, because it's just not something. Obviously there are patterns that you recognize from your own parents, but when you actually sit down and think about what were your experiences, how were you disciplined, what was your routine like, all these things that...
And they ask you this in the adoption process.
They absolutely make you reflect on your own childhood, and me and my wife had very different childhoods, both happy but very, very different, and it does make you think about, right, well, how are we going to be as parents? And part of the adoption thing is they're very strong on a style of parenting known as therapeutic parenting, which is a very nurturing style of parenting to help kids who've come from adopted backgrounds to sort of process their emotions better and reduce shame and these types of concepts. And so we were very, very conscious about what we were doing, but I think that's because we were going through a process. I have loads of friends, and we've talked about this, and they didn't have that sort of thing. They just, the child came along after 9 months, and all of a sudden they were like, okay, well, we have to deal with this. So it was very different for us.
But I guess it's quite useful to have it, because I never had this conversation with my wife before our kids came along. But
absolutely, yeah.
I guess it kind of puts you on the same page almost.
100%. And it is that thing where people can have kids without necessarily thinking through all the different facets of being a parent, whereas when you go through adoption, they make sure that you're ready before obviously you're approved and allowed to adopt a child, but you're confronted as a couple to understand, well, do we want to do this? Why do we want to do this? How are we going to do this? And that was all part of how we came to being parents.
And what about therapeutic parenting? Can you give us an example of that?
So me and my wife sort of look at therapeutic parenting as a style of parenting we would have adopted anyway. And a sort of example of it is if your child can't regulate themselves, they're having a meltdown because gymnastics is closed or whatever. It's all about sort of telling them that you understand why they're feeling that way, and not necessarily saying, "Oh, be quiet, don't worry about it," or whatever. You're putting yourself in sort of the child's position and saying, "I understand that you're frustrated. This has happened. There's nothing we can do about it, but we'll do this next time, or we'll go another time." And it's just helping them regulate themselves and making sure that they know that you are there for them in that moment of sort of high stress, high anxiety.
That's interesting. It's interesting because I suppose, you know, you're getting the kids from different backgrounds and you don't know what they've been through. So that is, it's useful.
Yeah, it's all about them knowing that you are there for them and you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Effectively.
think we adopt some of that. It's that validation of
It
their
is.
feelings, isn't it?
And I see this in my other friends who haven't adopted. And I think modern parenting styles are very similar to that approach, and there's lots and lots of crossover.
It's just hard when you hit boiling point,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then you really get the guilt that that's not how I should have reacted. And you have to remember that you're human too.
Absolutely.
Instagram and all of the what we should be doing and how that affects them later in life.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a minefield.
It is a minefield, and hey, we get it wrong all the time. But I think it's important that you sort of pick yourself back up and say, "Oh, I lost my temper," or "I raised my voice," or whatever it was, and you just say, "Do you know what?" And actually apologise to the kid and say, "I'm sorry for
Yeah,
that."
I'm big on that.
Because my parents would never have apologised to me at that stage, and that's not a criticism. It's just the way it was then.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very old school parenting, wasn't it? You know?
Yeah.
I apologize to my kids all the time. And it's so hard, isn't it? In that moment of like, they drive you mad, don't they? To that, it's hard work sometimes. But for me, as I've gone a bit, as you know, as we've all got older, I do find myself a lot better now, just like relaxing, and quitting coffee helped me. Bizarrely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought that's what's
Don't
keeping
think
me
I'm ready
going.
for that.
This is because I was a younger.
Yeah. But also, as you find, you probably say this, like, whatever moment your kids are in, because obviously it's all chapters, and as they grow up, it's like, do you guys are like, oh my God, this is just like the best stage. This age is brilliant. This age is really fun.
I do love this age. I do think it's a very full-on age.
Yeah. You're 3 and 4, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, they are now. And it's, they want you all the time. And yeah, so that can feel really full on. But at the same time, I love the playfulness of it. I love being that side of me that nowhere else really gets to see that. And it just makes light of things that can get you down. Priorities, like coming home from work before children, things could play on my mind all night. I come home now and it's so busy and full of energy and love, and I do get worried as they get older that I'm going to still want to be a bit silly and they're just going to be embarrassed.
Oh, I think they will. So, yeah. Now, my eldest is definitely going that way. He's starting rolling his eyes at dad jokes and stuff like that. And it's like, 2 years ago, you would have found that hilarious.
Tough crowd.
Very tough crowd. So how would you describe your parenting styles then?
Probably quite playful, like I said before. I think I'm quite lighthearted with stuff. There's certain things that I'm quite firm on, and it's like kindness. I like them to eat well. But on the whole, I always think of my kids and my father-in-law that in the Frozen era, they will literally sing "Let It Go," and there's certain things you just have to let go, because it's not annoying anyone else really. You're just winding yourself up for no reason.
Yeah, that's true. Are you the good cop or bad cop then?
Good cop.
Right. What about you, Rory?
Well, to sort of answer the first question, I would say both me and my wife are pretty relaxed in our parenting style, and it is sort of based upon the therapeutic style of parenting. I think very playful. I love just being silly with the little man, and just running around. He's big into Lightning McQueen in cars at the minute and playing along with that and singing. But I do, I suppose, struggle with, there is a lie. I absolutely want to be his friend, but I'm very conscious that I am his father as well, and that there needs to be boundaries set, and that doesn't mean they have to be big scary boundaries. But once you say no, you can't do something, I'm just very conscious that I have to hold that to the bitter end. And once you set the boundary, you have to like keep it there. So it's staying disciplined in that from my perspective, because when they're so cute and playful, or they're crying and they want something, and you think the temptation is to give in and give them an extra yogurt or whatever it may be, you just have to go, no, son, you've had enough now.
Because they can sense weakness.
God, can they sense weakness?
Do you do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of like, you know, when you want them to do something? And I've made the mistake of being like, so I'll say, if you don't do this in 5, then there's a consequence. And sometimes when you can't think of one, you give them a consequence, but then you're like, oh, that would have actually helped me. You know, like, say you say, you can't have any telly today. Or you can't have books before bed. And you just like stood there thinking, please do it before 0, because I need the books. I need the telly.
2.5. 2.
Yeah, literally.
1.8.
We even do 0.
That was the so my wife, she was like, said to my lad, he's like, right, he misbehaved, right, you're not having the Switch for the rest of the day. She was working, I was looking after them for the day, so I was like, you throw me right under the bus here. Like, what am I going to have to do? So we had to, it was a long day.
I had to do Lego.
No, we stuck to it, but it was a long day.
And that's the thing, you have to stick to it.
Yeah.
You just do, because they smell weakness, and if you do it once, it'll take a week or so to repair that boundary.
And you can't crack. So my little girl, she's got this habit of, like, when I'm telling her off, she just turns around and says, I see a little smile, and she keeps doing it, and I have to walk away because I start laughing. So have your views changed on parenting since you become one? Because you're both new parents, aren't you? Really, you especially, Rory.
Probably my views on sleep have changed. So when I'd had like nephews before having my own children, I would put them to bed and then I would go to bed as well. And I never understood why parents stayed up late. And I think, but you're just tired the next day. Why do it to yourself? And then since obviously doing it every day, you need that time. You need that come down and some Netflix.
You need couples time.
You do.
Yeah.
Very important.
You do. Definitely that sort of making time for each other becomes crucially important, I would say. I think I'm probably, and this is kind of related to what you've just said in terms of when I look at people who were parents before and they go and say we're out for drinks after work or something, like, oh no, I need to get back. Beforehand I would be like, oh well, they're probably in bed now or whatever, but actually I 100% get that element of it now, where actually even if you've been the one to put them to bed, you might want some time to have a shower or watch a bit of TV or whatever, and just being that support for your other half as well, as much as is really important, and certainly more important than staying out for an extra pint after work or whatever it may be.
It turns into 4,
well,
and then you really regret it the next day.
You're a good
hangovers are a no-go area.
Like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, especially when you've got a 2.5-year-old jumping on your head at 6 a.m. But
that is the other thing. It's hard work, isn't it? When you do go out, kids don't understand hangovers, do they?
They don't. No, I can confirm that for sure.
And you always find when you go away on like a girls' weekend or a lads' weekend, you can always spot the parents, because they're the ones who like go crazy because like we're free. Or the other way, they're like, I'm just going to stay in the hotel.
Yeah,
and we're just gonna sleep.
That's what's really confusing about weddings. So our only time away from the children on the whole has been going to weddings overnight, and then most of the time we have a wild one, and then wake up the next morning and go, we should have rested. We're more tired than we were when we got here.
You always wake up at 6 a.m. now, no matter what.
Yes.
Like anytime you do go away.
My husband does.
Really? Can you lie in?
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah.
I can't lie in.
I'm great, and this is probably something that isn't normal for mums, but I can sleep through quite a lot. So since getting through that first year when I feel like I was on high alert, they can like cry for me, and my husband's like, they want you. I mean, he does get up as well, but if they're like asking for me, I can sleep like a log. I've got that back.
Oh no,
I feel like as soon as he opens his eyes in the morning, my eyes open too. And we're really lucky. He sleeps mostly till 6 a.m. is probably as early as he gets up. 6:30 is the usual. But yeah, no, I cannot sleep beyond 7 at all anymore. Just can't do it.
What time are you going to bed?
10 is probably.
No wonder you're on the coffees, mate.
Well, yeah, 9:30 to 10:30 will be the window for bedtime. But
and it's weird, isn't it? Now you hear it, we sound really old, don't we? But there'll be people listening to this. There'll be people listening to this with no kids going, what? And there'll be people with kids going, I hear you. I hear you.
It'll happen to you, people with no kids. Yeah.
There's your warning.
You do feel older, sorry. But I do feel like when they're in the baby stage, you still feel quite young. And I would walk with the pram and be like, oh, people must think I'm so young to have a baby. And I used to just feel really cool walking around. Once they can walk, it does make you feel a lot older. Somehow, like, it just shifted something that, I look at myself and think, I've just aged so much in a year. It's
different chapters, though. Like I was saying earlier, it's like when one chapter closed, like, so they're out of push chairs, for example, out of nappies and all these little chapters. And it's just the next thing along, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to put down your favourite chapter. And each one, I'm always like, oh, this is the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. And then they'll do something else or they'll grow. And it's like, oh, this age is the best. So, and it keeps going. For me, anyway, it's kept going. It's like, this age is great.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really enjoy the baby side, like the early stages. I found it hard work because you don't get a lot back and you have to give everything.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
How were you the same? Or?
It's a massive adjustment, especially the first time, because your life changes so much. And that social life is gone.
Yeah.
But also not being at work. Hello, what is that now? All the mummy friends now, isn't it?
I
Daddy
remember
friends.
that, yeah.
The second time, obviously your life's already shifted. You're used to being quite tired. And because I did mine quite close together, that was an easier adjustment. But I did love the baby stage. But I think as a mum, is that different?
I think that might be a female thing. I don't know. Because my wife, she loved the baby stage. She'd still be having children now.
And in some ways it's easier. Like you could go out and meet friends for lunch and have a conversation while they slept or fed. And once you get into the toddler phase, you are going places that they need to be in.
Yes. And even if you're going with other parents, I don't think I've finished a conversation in the entire time we've had him. You meet up with these people like, oh, how was your friends? And you're like, you know what, I don't know. I saw them for an hour and a half, but we started talking. They're doing something like this. They're maybe going there, but you never quite. And then you and my wife try and piece together the information that we've gathered from both of them into.
Then you do a voice note.
Yeah.
You mentioned this. Just want to finish that conversation.
But listening, we are not moaning. This is not by any
no.
stretch, because we wouldn't change it, would we?
It's just different. Yeah.
It exactly is. How have you found watching kids' TV? Because I think that's one of the best things about being a parent. Being able to watch kids' TV, it's just genius.
Disney.
Right. Disney.
Less so about the kiddie. Hate Peppa Pig. Very whiny.
I'm not big on Peppa Pig either.
No, don't
not
like
a great
her.
role model. Sorry.
Bit whiny.
Yeah.
Bit whiny.
And makes
Peppa.
them whiny. I do find that it reflects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thankfully, my little boy isn't into that. He hasn't really been big into TV.
Right.
Which has its pros and cons. But he's really got into Cars, the Disney thing recently, and Lightning McQueen, and this has been like the first thing that he's been into, really.
Have you got any advice for anyone dealing with like the transitions of like having a family and going through change? Have you got any advice?
I know I mentioned it before, but I do think it's the making everything quite playful. I did just mention it about Bluey and Bingo, but when we moved in, we had like little surprises in each room. Yeah. And to us, it's quite a small thing. So it was new bath bombs on the side of the bath, their favourite cuddly toys waiting, balloons in the hallway. Just little touches that made it like this is a fun experience, as well as it might be a bit scary for you too.
I think you're right, John. It's those little moments that seem small, but they're massive for them, and they will remember those little bits and pieces. And it's just, finding ways to make the sort of the mundane or the scary a little bit funner. When we were adopting my little boy, they got you to make a book about where you live and where you go and who your family members are. And to this day, that is his favourite book. He loves getting that book out and reading and looking at the pictures. And now he knows all the people in the book and he talks about them. And it's just really, really nice that is his. It's a real source of comfort to him. And it's just, it's really, really sweet. But it's something I would say to people who don't adopt to do, because
I was just thinking that.
Because it was one of those, you go online, you pick a few pictures and a theme, and you
like
make
free
a book.
print books.
Exactly that. And have the grandparents in there, have the aunts and uncles in there, and he absolutely loves that book. And it really,
it's a comfort thing, isn't it?
It's absolutely comfort, and he will go to that, and he'll shout his uncle's name or his cousin's name, or he'll see our car, because we took a picture of the car. This is the car you're going to be in. He'll go, car, get in the car, Dada. You're like, oh, okay, son, yeah. And it was just a really simple thing that made a big difference to him joining our family.
So it's quite good we've got a mum and a dad here. Obviously, you're not together, but what different challenges are there for mums and dads, would you say?
Who wants to go first?
Who is it easier being a mum or a dad, would you say, or is there different challenges?
I think the role of mum and dad and the stereotype of that has changed a lot since relationships being more balanced. But I think the role of mum, I sometimes feel more pressure to get certain things right or to keep certain things in our life moving. And it sounds little, but things like remembering everyone's birthday cards. Yeah. Like, since having children, I find that actually quite a struggle. Yeah. It's the remembering not just to buy them, but to post them and remembering when they are.
Yeah. So my perception would be that it's those sort of traditional gender stereotype roles still exist, and I do think there is more pressure on the mums than there is on the dads as a general rule. I know that's not always the case, but I know my wife feels that in terms of expectations to, like you say, remember the birthday cards, to make sure she's on top of everything in the household, on top of everything with our child, to make sure that we're organised for everything and we're not missing anything. And I think we're both pretty relaxed people, but I'm uber relaxed, as you can probably tell from this. And I don't feel that as much, but I consciously try and make a real effort to make sure that I'm trying to carry whatever it is she's carrying at the same sort of level, and it's just making sure that she knows that we're in this together, and whatever needs to be done, I'm there to help as well.
My wife talks a lot about mum guilt. She suffers a lot from mum guilt, going, oh, I've not spent enough time with the kids because she's working. Oh, I've not spent enough time with the kids. And, I don't know, there's a bit of, I do a bit more of the, just the way the roles work in our house. I do quite a lot more. And she often talks about mum guilt. Is that...
You just don't want to miss anything. And I think there's mum guilt, but I also get guilt in other areas. Like, you feel like, because I like to give, when I'm doing something, give everything to that moment. Mm-hmm. So things are going to slip. And it's, sorry, I don't know where I'm really going with
that. No, that's fine. No.
It feels too deep and personal.
Oh, no, that's deep. That's fine, yeah.
But it is, it's difficult, balancing everything, and when you want to give everything your best, when you can't, that hurts sometimes. Yeah.
We have a saying in my household, and it's like, you can have anything, but you can't have everything. And it's trying to sort of focus in on that. And it is exactly what you're talking about. It's like, anything is possible, but not everything is possible. And just focusing on the things that really matter, whether that be this particular birthday party or this particular event, and making sure everyone, or you go to that and I'll stay at home, and you go to this and you do that. And it's just making sure that everyone's getting enough of what they need to sort of function.
And that's something we learn, that and it sounds like you've done it quite quickly, we were doing everything as a family of 4, be it birthday parties, be it going to the park, which was lovely. And it did mean that me and my husband were spending that quality time together as well. Well, quality as much as it is with everything going on. But yeah, we were struggling to fit even if it's just down to cleaning and just getting a bit of downtime. And that's something really recent for us, actually, that we've started being like, well, if you have your time now, I'll go do this with them, to section it out a bit.
Yeah, divide and conquer is a good strategy when you've got really busy lives, and if you're both working and you've both, like you say, when do you do the cleaning? Like, you used to have time on a Saturday morning to blitz the house together. Now it's like, well, I'm working from home on a Friday. He goes in to nursery at 7:30. Between 7:30 and 8:30, I will do as much housework as I possibly can in that window. So then we've got some potential quality time later on, and we try not to point score. It's like whoever's happens to have the window of opportunity.
Yeah,
they
the
just
point
do it.
Scoring is dangerous ground.
Absolutely. But you can't, because, well, I don't think you can, because I always think someone's going to lose out on that, and it's just for the greater good, and you just got to crack on. Is how we see it.
It's that guilt as well that you talked about. If I'm cleaning and I've thought I'll put the girls in front of the telly, I think this isn't how I want to be spending my weekend. I want to see them. I've worked in the week.
But you need to do your jobs. It's such a balancing act, isn't it? Real balancing act. And how are you guys coping with like social lives and weekends and stuff? They're a bit different now, aren't they?
I think our social life is now, well, every weekend starts with, what can we do today that is appropriate for the current weather conditions, appropriate for his current mood or level of illness, and just trying to tire him out effectively. He's really active, full of energy. So are we going to the trampoline park? Are we going to the normal park? Are we going to see his granny? Are we going to the M&S at the Trafford Centre where he can push the little trolley around, which he absolutely loves doing? It's just filling that in, and then we spoke of this off camera earlier on, John. It's just about seeing people who are in a similar place to you in life at the minute. So we have some great friends who don't have kids, and we'll do that divide and conquer thing where we'll go out separately to see them, and might have a drink or a bite to eat. But in terms of with the kids, it's always great to hang around with people who have other kids, or and if their houses are set up for having children, it makes such a difference. If you go to someone who's not got kids and there's nothing for them to do when you get there, it can be
round to the show home.
It can be a tough. It can be a tough hour and a half.
Our kids have been quite good at choosing friends with good parents. So we have got friends from pre-children that have got some kids similar ages. So that's fun. But with new friends, like we went for a play date with a new couple, got there at midday. Actually ended up leaving at 8:00 at night, feeling a little tipsy, had some food. The kids had a great time. So I think when you can make your weekends fun for both of you, so you're all kind of doing your own thing, but in the same space, that is an absolute win.
And I found this really interesting, actually, making friends as adults.
Yes.
Because you don't do it, do you? Like, you make your friendship groups either in school, uni, work, and that's it. But when you've got children, it's like, well, you've got to meet a whole new range of people, and you've not made friends for such a long time. It's starting again. It's interesting.
It is nice because you're meeting people in a place of, what do you do? And like in like areas that you might not have ever spoken to. So if you've got something in common as well as your children, it's quite nice.
Yeah, and I think you find your sort of tribe pretty quickly in those scenarios. We have made some phenomenal friends through Ryan, like genuine friends for life, who we would have been friends with if we had have met in the wild, as me and my wife say. But like,
that's a great way.
We just never would have come across each other in the day to day because of the circles that we move in.
But it's so weird I find it anyway. Just like, so having those conversations. So what's your name? What do you do? And like when you're down the park as like dads together, because usually the mums naturally do it. Like, they'll go and make the friends. They'll start the conversations. For dads to do it, it's a bit strange, I found, but so rewarding because you get to meet some great people.
Definitely. Well, we had this recently. We've new neighbours on the street, and they've got a little boy who's the exact same age as our little boy, and I'm like, these two need to be friends. There's a window of opportunity for both families here. So, and you're right, it's that sort of nervous thing. Well, how do I approach this? How do we meet them? And we actually ended up meeting them in the local coffee shop, and we got chatting because the kids gravitate to each other. And then you swap numbers, and then it's a weird thing to do. Like, that's not something.
No, we look for people that have got one child because then we're not outnumbered. So we love our friends with one children. With one child.
Yeah, that's it. Like swapping numbers is like dads. It's
it's
so
weird. It is weird. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
it's like, and you get nervous asking a man for his phone. It's such a weird thing for dads to do. Like, girls make it look like the mums make it look so easy and effortless. Like, oh yeah, let's swap numbers. And you know, my wife made like a load of new friends straight away. But it's always a bit different for dads. It's
yeah, it's just not something. Well, it's just something we need to get better at.
You're right,
and that's
absolutely. So, Joanne, you had your kids during COVID. Is that right? Or?
My first was 6 months old when we went into lockdown. Yeah.
What was that like? That must have been tough because of like the mums groups, the getting out and all that. It's all shut down, wasn't it?
Do you know what? There was more positives than negatives in comparison to the second time. The expectation went out the window in terms of getting to the baby groups, and we'd already cemented the like NCT friendships enough that we would WhatsApp, and we would. To be fair, we used technology better during lockdown, so we did do more of those kinds of calls. And my husband was working from home. So in terms of help, I mean, in the first 6 months, he'd come home and I'm like, I've not eaten since you left. And you've been gone for 10 hours because he commutes like an hour and a half each way. So it was quite a long day. We had that gorgeous hot summer. So I just did loads of pram walks, lots of time in the garden. So I actually look back on it and I know it's been a horrific time for a lot of people, but for that specifically, quite fondly.
Mm-hmm. Any knock-ons for how you're parenting now after COVID? Like keeping your kids clean and stuff like that? Is there any of that? Or?
Yeah. So it has, even during lockdown, I was quite extreme. So when I go to the supermarket, I tried to do a 3-week shop in one shop. And at one point, I actually filled the conveyor belt so full because obviously I was loading it and then needed to pack. It wouldn't move. And it was so embarrassing because I had to then unload quite a lot of it. And this woman's just tutting at me. There's people in the queue a bit like, why have you got all this stuff? And then I get home and Dettol it all down. And it's definitely made me a lot stricter. So the kids know that we sanitize. So even if we're getting a snack out at the park, they ask for the sanitizer out of my bag. They will say they're going to wash their hands. So it has definitely shaped that side of our lives.
Okay, that's it's interesting how it has affected family life and even now. And obviously, Rory, you didn't have your boy during COVID, did you?
No. And he certainly doesn't ask for the sanitizers for snacks. Well, certainly when he's with Daddy, he might be when he was with Mummy. But yeah, no, I'm fair play. I'm not that way inclined.
Well, they do say kids need germs, don't they?
Well, the 3-second rule is alive and well in my house. If it's been on the floor, I'm okay with that.
Brilliant. Well, guys, thank you so much for having a chat with us today. It's been great having your insight into parenting and parenthood, and good luck with the future. Let's hope they don't drive you too crazy, and wish you lots of happy moments together over the next few years and forever. So thanks for having a chat, Rory and Joanne. Thanks for being on the Simple Life Chat. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this special Simple Life Chat about parenting. Next time, we're on location in the Simple Life kitchen for a culinary-themed resident takeover.